What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to my brother. He is an all-around badass. He is a former mixed martial art fighter, but don't think that asterisk sticks because he still trains to this day, as you can see by the hulking bod, and he's training his wife to be a fucking assassin. He's the one, the only Stephen Paprocki. Steve, what's going on, bro?
How are you doing today, brother?
Yeah, man, good, man. Good to have you on. And I think I, I don't want to overreach myself because we got Mom's Basement MMA over on Instagram that had Cat on the day before I did. Shout out to them. But I think I might be the only person to have you guys both on their platforms.
We've done a couple joint interviews. But yeah, not separate like this. Yeah, we've done
Yeah,
a couple joint interviews. It's a gimmick that people like, you know. I get it. I get it. It is neat. I mean, when you look across, especially women's MMA, you do see a lot of this situation. Um, so we're not rare, but people seem to like the gimmick.
you know what? Fuck it. Just like that pro wrestling fan that was crying, it's still real to me, damn it. So for my heart and my soul, I'm just gonna choose to believe that. Not to say I wouldn't believe you, because I do. Otherwise, you wrote my ass, which you probably should, and you probably should.
I'm
Um,
old and out of it.
no, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it's funny because there have been if people. I'm not saying like filthy casuals, right? But if you look at like the dynamic of one Pat HD Barry and reigning strawweight UFC champion, fucking Rose Namajunas, it's kind of similar to what you and Kat have.
It's funny you mention that. So we are friends with them. And I can tell you, oddly enough, when you say that, there was a time we were at 303 when Rose was still at 303, and we were cross training there, and Pat had this very short but awesome conversation with Rose, and he was so upfront in how he addressed some of the things that she needed to focus on. And I remember right then thinking, that's how I deal with this with Kat. Like that's the way. Like that is the way. And honestly, I mean that is just the way I saw him be upfront with Rose and not hide behind her issues or hide them, but address them, is what I've done with Kat, man. And that was because of that situation, 6 years ago. So I mean that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Which I'm gonna, before we move on, this is too good, too much meat on the bone, right? But do you guys ever attend anything like, and dare I say, double date, like you and Kat and Pat and and Rose? Do you guys like ever get together, or obviously you guys have trained together, but uh-oh, he might have froze, folks. So I will. I guess I'm stalling for time. Yeah, what's good, party people? Um, if you don't know, this is According to Woods. I'm Woods, and shit is according to me, apparently, right? That's the title. But I have Stephen Rocky, who is a coach, a fighter, and one of his main teaching prospects, disciples, if you will, is one Cat Paprocki who will be fighting very soon. I believe they're in quarantine for LFA. All right, and they've got LFA fights, so they're in quarantine, the mandated quarantine, I believe. That's why we're getting the inconsistencies of internet and what have you. So bear with us. It's good. It's good. We're here. Steven is somewhere. So as we wait for him to join back on, I'm going to fill time. All right. So what events are you guys looking forward to the most right now? This is both like MMA and pro wrestling, and it's right up my alley. But tonight in Los Angeles, California, as we're filming this, essentially is GCW, Game Changer Wrestling's highest in the room, and it has Jonathan Gresham versus Minoru Suzuki. Also, October 30th, we have Lights Out Extreme Fighting. It's an amazing card. So there's that. Yo,
I am unsure what happened. I apologize.
it happens. It happens. Like phones can overheat connections,
It got
especially
hot. Yeah.
when your what is it? Your glacial suites at parts unknown. The people want to get on your Wi-Fi because they're like eat the rich and shit like that. So they might be jealous. They might be hating on you, bro.
I'm actually at a hotel out in California with one of my fighters.
Really?
Yes, sir.
I might
Yes.
not be in a hotel, but I might be in California.
Yeah, yeah. We're right outside of LA and I think Bakersfield or something.
Oh, my wife is from there. You're in
Yeah,
Central Valley.
yeah. We've got the fights on Fox tomorrow.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
That's the boxing card, right?
sir, sir. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, man. And that's the thing about living in California, right? Yes, we have horrible crime, horrible homeless, horrible government. um, our taxes are way too fucking high, but we have the beach. And if you're a fight connoisseur, like you're up to your eyeballs. Like
yeah. I'm like, wait.
I can't keep up with it. I was just saying, like Minoru Suzuki, who's the fucking co-founder of Pancrase in Japan, is wrestling, pro wrestling, like tonight in LA, right? There was just a fucking boxing fight. This is Friday, right? So in Montebello, just outside of LA, and it was a fucking phenomenal fucking card on UFC Fight Pass. Like it's nuts. Like and that's also how I kind of gained my chops because over the course of the last 5 years, like basically there'd be sometimes 2 days fucking events every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, especially over the summer, right? So I would just fucking show up with my fucking phone, a little
Yeah,
$50 mic attachment, and I just fucking started interviewing, put it on Facebook Live, and then some fucking the free admission media people, they fucking amazing, but they produced me and shit like that. Did their podcast for about almost 3 years before COVID and shit like that. But they
yeah,
were 2 hours away from me, in traffic. Right? Really, it's like a 45-minute drive, but it's 2 hours. On a Tuesday night when I was doing it. So I just kind of started my own thing, and I love those guys. They're fucking amazing. But I just like I can't get out there. So you guys got to move on. I got to move on. So fuck it.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, can we lift the veil? Like, who's your person fighting?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Marcus Rodriguez. He's a 125 or 26er.
I
Actually
might
fight.
follow.
Yeah, he actually fights a little smaller. A little out of shape right now. Kind of took the fight on short notice. It was a good opportunity. He's a hardworking kid, so but it was a good opportunity. We got a good payday, and we're on the main card, so he's ready to rock, man. He's excited.
Which, as a coach, I have to ask you. Like Cat's fight is coming up, right?
Yeah,
And
sir.
then
Next week.
that's a relatively full fight camp, and then you've got Mr. Rivas's, fight, right, coming up. Do you prefer a short notice, or do you prefer, a full camp? And not to disclose like too much of the game plan or anything like that, but like, what does that do to you? How do you approach it as a coach?
That's a great question. Now, with the majority of our team, they're just in camp all the time. So regardless of the fight is, we talk about Kat's fight. She just signed this fight, 2.5 weeks ago, right? But she's been in camp for 12 weeks. I mean, it's not, she's been in camp since before her fight against Gina Gooden that got canceled because of COVID, right?
Oh,
Like,
yes, Vanessa Demopoulos, right?
yeah,
Little monster.
that one too. Yeah, she's been through all of these. Like, she doesn't come out of camp, right? Like, that's where she lives. She lives in camp, eats proper, like, obviously we're not cutting all the time, but we have weight guidelines that our fighters stay on, and they got to be ready, especially with COVID happening. The we are so far away from an 8-week camp now. With COVID, we're really causing people to go to these 3 to 6 week camps, which is fine. It is what it is, but you're learning that these new uh, uh, highly evolved fighters, the camp is bullshit, right? Like, this is how you live. This is what you do. And I can tell you this, man, at our gym, or, one of the gyms that we heavily cross train at, Genesis, like, you have your core group at each gym that is going to be there, whether they are fighting or not. It is what it is, right? And those people are the people who are going to be successful, at a higher rate, more often, with less damage to their body. Because in order for you to fulfill that lifestyle, you have to do everything you do healthy. It is truly a lifestyle choice you are making to be an MMA fighter at this day and age.
No, I love that answer, because, we can look, you and I, we both have friends, that are coaches much like yourself, right? And, in terms of like dynamics, right? It's so important and so crucial to the homeostasis of the gym, right?
Right.
And to have somebody there that's all, ready to go all the time, it's crucial, but also that person also has to have a good team mentality, like otherwise it just doesn't work, to use kind of a basketball analogy, right? Like LeBron had won a fucking title, and I know jack shit about current day basketball. I stopped watching in like 97 or something like that. But LeBron came over from Cleveland and we went to Miami, and there was two guys like Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade,
Wait,
who
yep.
are phenomenal players. And most people are like, they're going to win a fucking championship. Or even here in LA, right? Kobe, Shaq, and what they ended up doing. But it fucking took a while, And there were some great players before Kobe came. And actually, Kobe is what made me stop watching fucking basketball. I was like, this little dude is like, he's kind of an ass, like, obviously he changed his ways, quite a bit, but I had a personal interaction with him when I was in middle school, and it wasn't good, And so those guys and girls that stay in the gym all the time, it's crucial, because like when they're getting ready for a fight, well, the whole team shows up for them, just like that person, that one individual showed up for everyone else. It could
Right.
be the make or break when somebody only comes in when they're in fight camp and then knocks everybody's fucking head off, and then after the win or the loss or the fight, they fucking disappear like Houdini.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely an old school mentality. Um, and now it's not even a matter of the difference. I mean, the truth is, at the highest level of the game, though there is no longer people that are just coming in for camps. That's not how it's working anymore, right? The talent is too deep, you know. From when I was fighting, I mean, we're talking 10 years ago, and in that short spurt of time, the difference is tremendous, right? Like I was ahead of my time because I was in shape as a heavyweight, right? So that was
Mm-hmm.
considered like good, right? And I trained hard. That was new. That was good. Well, now by current day standards, that means nothing. Like, the people at the highest level of the game, that is just what they're doing, and they are eating better, and they are. I mean, just the way that these athletes have transformed, it's making sense. They're finally getting the pay they deserve. It takes a while. I was never upset about MMA pay early on. I think a lot of people are very naive to combat sports. You look at a lot of boxers, yeah, they make a lot of money, but they also have 150 amateur fights. When they become pro, they actually are pros. Where in MMA, it took us a while to get there, but now we are at a point where our pros are pros. They do have their 10,000 hours, and they continue to grow on that 10,000 hours. It's just a different game, man, and it's pretty cool to be a part of it.
No, absolutely. And again, when you think of it, right, 10 years, right, like for somebody that's 25, right, they were 15 then, right, probably in high school or what have you, right. But then when you
Yep.
think of like the totality of MMA, right, it was less than 20 years old, right? I mean, of course, like, shoot box in Brazil and no holds barred and tough man competitions here in the States, right? But like nothing like what we know it now, right? And we just had Carlos Condit, retire yesterday,
Yeah.
right? Actually, that actually broke, thanks to friend of the show, uh, Alex, right? He basically was like, "Oh, did you hear fucking Condit retired?" Well, on as a guest was Dr. Ramon Velasquez, who is his neurological coach.
Okay.
His neurological coach didn't even know he was retiring. He was like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
fucking Condit is still at the top of his game and shit like that." And even Condit was like, "Fuck it, I'm out." He went out
Yeah.
on a win. He went
Yeah.
out on a
Yeah.
win.
Yeah. It's man, it's tough. You take greats like that, like Carlos Kana. It's so tough to adjust at this point in time. Like in order for him at this age to start training the way that this new breed of fighters is, man, it is so different. It's very not easy, but it's a lot more simple when you have been training that way to stay healthy that way. It is hard at an older age to convert to training that often and being all right. I trained a lot when I fought. The downside was I also hard sparred a lot. We were idiots back then. It was just that's basically what you were trying to do. Is you were just staying alive enough to get to hard sparring, that morning or whatever it was. Where with our team, we have two sparring days a week, but one is very light. The other sparring day is heavy. We call that our work our shit out day. If somebody was messing around on the mat and you don't like it, that's the day you get to correct it. Um, it helps our team self-regulate a lot. Our team does self-regulate. Like, hey, do you remember when we had to do burpees because you showed up fat? You're getting beat up today. Like that's it. And it does self-regulate. But these guys, man, these guys and these girls it's just tremendous. I think a big portion of it, honestly, is the addition to women's MMA and how prevalent it has been. Women have a tendency to make things better in the long run, right? I just think because culturally, honestly, women are taught to take a seat, which sucks, but they are culturally they are taught to kind of take a seat. But now we are putting them back in a position where they're learning and they're allowed to and they should, and it's ridiculous that we're even having this conversation, right? Like, but that is the reality of it. So you're finding these women again that have a lot of their spouses are their coaches or whatever because women have been taught how to take guidance better than us. So now they're going in with the same type of intelligence, but more of a cultural accepting to follow guidance, right? Like I think a lot of guys, I know me included, I was very lost young because as men, we are taught we don't need guidance. We should just know what to do. Right. And it took me 32 years to get my shit together. 32 long years.
Fuck.
Yeah, man. Took a long
Which,
time.
yeah, no, fuck. It's like that's literally a life in that fucking lifestyle shit, you know. Which speaking of lifestyle, I want to get into your fight career, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did you end up fighting? Because that's fighters. I know fighters. It's anybody that's a fan of fighters and meet them in person, different fucking breed, man. So, like, what was it for you that kind of was like, I'm in?
Man, I played I come from a very just a not great neighborhood in New York. And I just grew up kind of playing sports. I wasn't the smartest kid by choice, right? Like I just didn't have interest in that. In fairness, I also didn't have incredibly uh, I didn't have good parenting. You know what I mean? Like not that they didn't mean well. They just they were very ignorant and chose to be and choose to stay there, right? So I just wasn't raised well. I didn't have a lot of good direction. So I kind of grew up just in sports and fighting, and that was always intriguing to me, and I would learn to fight. And I spent some time in Florida, and I boxed for a very long time, and I played football for a very long time, which is really where my coaching is from. It's from football. Um, but when I had gotten to Colorado, I was running LA Boxings. I was a regional manager for LA Boxing. One of
Yeah.
my trainers had kind of become one of my friends, and he was a amateur kickboxer. The guy was an animal. Shouldn't have been an amateur. He was just ridiculous. So I had made a comment, just being stupid, like not watching my words and not being mindful of who I was talking to. And I was like, Danny, if you go pro on the next card, I'll fight on the undercard. An hour and 30 minutes later, we're at lunch and he has a contract. Like, so I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm fighting. And I fought and I lost, and it was a split decision. I should have lost. I shouldn't even have. The truth is, man, that guy was 7-0 against the debut. Like there was no business of him fighting, but I got a mouth. And I was like, man, I got to go back and get a win. And so I fought again. I actually ended up fighting a friend in the second fight. And I enjoyed it, and that was the win. And I was like, cool, I'm done, man. Like this is cool. And I got called for a short notice fight, and it was like 3 weeks. So I was like, cool. Like I don't have to. Like I've been in the gym anyway. Like who cares? That fight, the guy weighs in and doesn't like show up to the fight. So from there, it just kind of took off. Like I ended up just fighting to get things knocked out of the way. And then I got an amateur title, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not fighting. And my coach made this stupid fucking comment. He was like, man, the thing is, though, you got to defend it to make it matter. And I was like, well, then fuck it. I'll fuck it. I'm going to fight, and it'll matter. And so I defended it. And then, like, money was coming in with sponsors. It was, as an amateur, I was making an incredible amount of money. Just an incredible amount of money from sponsors, especially 10 years ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago, sponsors were huge, So as an amateur, I was making 5 figures or 6 figures or 5 figures on just a fight. Like it was ridiculous, So when all of a sudden I started getting offered money to do this as well, I was like, well, I can make a living at this. Like, fine. So I just quit. My girlfriend, who now is my wife, had come home at the time, and she was like, "What are you doing home?" And I was like, "Oh, I quit. I'm just fighting." Like, and she was working part-time, and she was like, "Cool, man. Like, I got faith, whatever." And then that was it. I just I fought, and it some good choices, some bad choices. There was opportunities I didn't take advantage of because it was hard to leave home when my sponsors were truly the ones paying me. Getting a $2,500 purse or a $5,000 purse mattered very little, when sponsors were stepping in and giving me, 10 times that. It was just so, I didn't have a lot of good guidance until I was late in my career again. It was me, though. I was the problem. I was lost as a kid, and it held through until, I got a little older, and I ended up getting a text message from Clarence Thatch. I was hanging out in New York. My grandfather had died, who I'm very close with. I was out in New York, and I got a text message from Clarence Thatch, and at the time he was only training Brandon, his son, and he was training Castellano. And he was like, "Hey, would you be interested in me training you?" And I was looking for a coach at the time. I was open. I realized like I needed some help, and then that was it. I went and visited with him, trained with him. I trained with him like 3 times, and we had gotten along. Like things were good. I was learning things. He really enjoyed. Like he had never seen somebody my size with cardio, and I was getting some real good training. And then that was it. I mean, so my coaching is based on like old school football and old school Clarence Thatch, man. However, I still talk to him and I still talk shit to him. I'm a better coach than he is.
That is so wild. I'd rather have a meat necklace and go in an alligator's mouth, but to each their own, right? Also, another former fighter and coach, Manolo El Huracan Hernandez says, "Hey, That is the fucking Broadfather. Training Liz Carmouche and
Yeah.
Elimele McFarland and all that shit. Yeah, man. God, I got to get around to calling that guy to get him on here. Fucking A. I'm kind of an idiot. I'm kind of an idiot. But, you mentioned Thatch. And I noticed you're tattooed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a circular tattoo, a black circle on on your shoulder.
Yeah.
No, little like closer to your neck. It's like prongs.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an old, it's a New Zealand tattoo. And it's on the side. I have my ancestors' eyes, and on here, it's an order of protection. That's all. I got a lot of,
Ooh. That
yeah.
well, the reason why I asked, right, is uh, like Thatch. Thatcher usually have like origins in Wigan, England, right? And Wigan is known for catch wrestling, right?
Okay.
So with that being said, and you guys are Colorado, right?
Sir.
I believe Jake Shannon, the prize pupil of one of the many prize pupils, because you've got Minoru Suzuki and Kazushi Sakuraba, but one of the disciples, Josh Barnett, right? You had one of the disciples of the late great Billy Robinson, right? And that looked like, at least to me, the untrained eye, the scientific wrestling logo or the catch wrestling logo that Jake Shannon basically has. So I was like, there might be some catch because
No,
you trained with
yeah, I do have wrestling. We have a great wrestling program. I've been able to be part of Catherine Shy's camp. She's actually at our gym. Now she obviously retired from wrestling and she is moving into jujitsu. She's been an awesome part of helping my wife get good at wrestling. We hear often when we're cross training, like, "Oh, that elite level wrestler," and we're like, "No, she didn't have wrestling. She just learned." My wife was not an athletic kid growing up. She makes fun of herself, like she just wasn't, and we built her, from the ground up, really making her an athlete. I can remember, it's so funny. I have a guy that he's an amateur kid. He's working very hard. He wants to make this a career, and I mean, this kid quite literally is working to make enough money to pay me so I can train him like he's a pro, right? Like he is working very hard. And this kid is just not athletic. Like he's not. So we're doing a lot of these drills, like building him as an athlete. And my wife will come out from the back or something and she'll see the drills. It just makes her laugh because she remembers her having to go through a lot of that, right? Like just fundamentally, she didn't know certain things and didn't have balance and didn't have this because she wasn't athletic growing up. There is a benefit to growing up in sports. And but it's cool, man. We got a great gym. We got a great group of people. Very different, but in the gym, like they're buddies. It's cool. Yeah, good girls group. And then again, we cross train a lot with Genesis. We cross train with many. Genesis in particular is somebody who we don't fight unless it's for a lot of money. It's just not worth it. We cross train enough that it's cool.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about this sport is there's so many variables, right? There's so many variables. You could come from a no-name gym, right, with a bunch of no names and become a world champion. You could be in a room full of like world champions and then fucking, have a lopsided fucking record because you're not getting the attention or what have you. Like it's just, before, the hotbeds would be like, Southern California or Brazil or Thailand or Florida, maybe, right? Colorado, obviously, like it hosted some of the first UFCs, right? But now everywhere. Like
Yeah.
where I grew up in Inglewood, right? There was maybe one Greasy Baja, probably about, I mean, in traffic, about 45 minutes away,
Okay.
or realistically, it should be about 15, right? And then within 10, 15 years, there is Muay Thai. There is like three other jiu-jitsu gyms. There's
Okay.
CrossFit and everything. And like maybe that's because of the gentrification. That could be it. But
Okay.
I mean, shit, me, like one of my friends that I went to high school with, he basically earned a Muay Thai title under Crew Rod McIver from Team Victory Muay Thai, right? And he like my friend graduated 2 years like after me, and basically started training after high school. I was already like, I don't know, I think I might have been getting married or some shit like that, or met my wife, or even might have been with my ex or whatever. Like my head was, I wasn't here. I was done with radio because I couldn't do this. I couldn't just talk about the shit that I wanted to talk about, and not sell fucking $50,000 worth of ads to get 1 hour of fucking on air time and shit like that.
Yeah.
So and that's like a daily, if not weekly basis. Like, if they're on the air, kind of pulling back the curtain a bit, they've made that radio station at least $5 million,
It's
right?
crazy.
At least
Yeah.
$5 million in the career. But that also might be in the last 6 months, right? And if they fucking don't do it, you're not on the air. You're
Right.
the street team member that fucking hands out stickers at concerts and shit like that. That's what you are.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fucking weird one, man. But like I said, there's no, there's the video documentary series, the Anatomy of the Fighter. Like there's no right way. You could have Cat and your amateur fighter not be athletic, right? There was a couple seasons ago when George St. Pierre was coaching the Ultimate Fighter, and he brought up the French guy, right, who was fucking noticeably drunk, smoking cigarettes. He had a fucking hard night in Vegas, right? France to Vegas. He's like, I'm gonna fucking do everything, and he beats the shit out of everyone, like just not even giving a shit.
Right.
And that happens too. Like you don't know. Like there's so many variables. Like you could be a consummate athlete and it works out, right? And you do better in some ways, but then you have like shit jujitsu, but you were running back in high school, so you're prone to holding the ball, which has developed your right forearm, and you knock people out with your fucking forearm. Like it's just weird. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I do, I would agree with some of what you're saying at the low level of MMA. Yes, at the high level of MMA, that's been washed out, man. These
Oh
guys
yeah,
practice those 10,000 hours. There is nothing you have that your opponent doesn't anymore, right? Like that is the difference between the UFC and Bellator, right? I have friends that fight for
100%.
Bellator. I love Bellator and I love those friends. However, it is a different caliber of fighter. The UFC, those people have put in their hours, continue to put in their hours, and continue to be so deliberate with their practice that they are endlessly the best, right? Where at some of these other leagues, you can get away with not washing everything out with practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You still can fall down to your college wrestling. You can't do that in the UFC anymore, man. Henry Cejudo won and defended championships without wrestling. I mean, think about that, right? Like, how much practice does it take to wash out what you did your whole life doing, right? Up until this point. That's practice at the highest level, man. It's crazy. It's crazy the commitment that so many. My wife, the commitment she has to this is just awesome, outstanding.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I love that you called me out for it because that's what I meant, but I didn't say, and to me that's like a degradation for, again, these guys and girls that are fighting at the highest of levels, and all the work that they put in again. So I love that you called me out because that rightfully so, yeah, but then I've also been like, at amateur fights and again, to echo your sentiment, black belt in jiu-jitsu, right? And the fucking students are like, coach, that'll never work. Professor, that'll never work. Oh, okay, cool. Signs up
Yeah.
for a fight and gets KO'd in 17 seconds. You
I mean,
know.
I've seen it go both ways, man. We have a black belt in Colorado that had two amateur fights. He lost both, and he's super cool about it. The way he talks about it, he's like, it is different. Like, it is different. And then we have, on this LFA card coming up, there's an amateur that's trying to get a fight that is a complete shark. When I saw the email come out and he was fighting, I was like, he not only has some Thai, he's a very good black belt. Uh,
Mm.
so he's probably going to hurt somebody his first fight or two. I mean, it is going to happen. But also in fairness too, you have guys coming out that are amateurs that train at a ridiculous rate already. I have a
Yes.
girl in my gym, Tani Packard. She's an amateur that trains like a pro. She's just belting away from being a pro. In our gym, we do have criteria that has to be met in order for you to go pro. So between jujitsu and your hands and all that, she has met her quota for her hands and her hours, but she still has to. You have to be on track. The truth is, as a pro, you have to have a minimum of purple, but I'll allow people to go pro with a blue belt as long as they are on track.
Really?
Um, yeah, because a purple belt in MMA is a black belt in MMA.
Okay.
A purple belt knows enough that if they can swing punches, that black belt isn't such a black belt anymore. Okay.
Yes.
However, and I will tell you, those things do change drastically, though. You take Kat, for example. If she can roll with strikes against the black belt, you might not notice that black belt's a black belt. However, when she rolled a few days ago with Fabiana George, who is a very impressive black belt, oh man, you knew she was a black belt. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, and Kat did very well, but the her jujitsu, because she was just using jujitsu, was absolutely tremendous. You know, it is different, but yeah. So those are our rules, and we have a few guys that are pushing hard, and I have just found that that's about what it takes to really make a run that's worth it. As a blue belt, you don't even know what's happening on the ground yet. You just think you do. As a purple, you truly have seen these things. You've been on the mat enough. You've been beaten up by enough black belts and brown belts that there isn't much you're going to show a purple belt that is truly a purple belt and truly training. There's not much you're going to show them they haven't seen. It's just a matter of knowing how to handle it appropriately. Well, the benefit of MMA is I can punch you in the face, and very often that's a very appropriate way to handle it. Plus, I think although ground is incredibly important, you do start each round standing up. You start each round standing up, and it is hard to armbar me if you are knocked out. But we train for everything. We actually, my wife and I own a JITS promotion, CJJC. We do pro shows on pay-per-view and stuff. We do big tournaments, and we love jiu-jitsu. We just love combat sports, period, man. You name it. If it is violent, good chance we're in.
I love it. No, and it's funny because yeah, especially when you're talking about jujitsu, right? Where jujitsu again 10 years ago when you were coming up, that shit was a fight, right? But now we've got like the super fights that are not really fights, or you go to IBJJFs and whatever, and people are like, like any of those like IBJJF sanction fucking deals,
Yep.
and motherfuckers are stalling for time, and they try to train for stalling for time and getting points and shit like that. But if you fucking stay on your fucking back in a real fight, you get fucked the fuck up. Like,
Yeah.
and
In
yeah.
fairness, that is sport jujitsu though, and there is nothing wrong with being good at that. Like, I think people at times forget that, right? Like, some of these people are very impressive, man. Like, it's still awesome what they're doing. I know for us, we just call it something else. So boxing is a match, jiu-jitsu is a match, Muay Thai is a bout, MMA is a fight.
Yes.
And we are clear about that. So when you are in the gym and you say, "Oh, I have a Muay Thai bout coming up," that is what you say. Treat it for what it is, because the rules are different as such. Because we a lot of our high level guys and girls will not just fight one sport, right? Like Kat has pro boxing, she has pro Muay Thai, um, and that's going to continue because those things are fillers. When there's things I need her to work on, that's what I throw her into because it doesn't affect her MMA record. So there are some things and some kinks that we can work out, which
Yes.
we did. She had tremendous stand up. However, she was choosing not to check because she was finding that she could absorb a kick and hit people. Well, we threw her in a Muay Thai fight, and she learned real quick. You better start checking some kicks, and now she can check. So I mean, there's valuable tools in all of these sports. You get these jujitsu practitioners that are very high level. As long as they can learn not to dance on their back in MMA, man, they are animals. Look
Mhm.
at Demopoulos, dude. Demopoulos is a very good fighter. She's
Yeah.
tough as nails. She has stand up, and she is I think she is a black or a high level brown.
She's a high level bround for sure. I
Yeah,
mean, at least when I talk to her.
yeah, a high level brown. I mean, and that is somebody who comes with a jiu-jitsu background that has excelled very quickly at a very awesome rate, right? But how many locals do we know that have fallen off because they didn't make the transition? But you could say the same thing about people that come from, a traditional martial arts background. They struggle with the contact at first. Getting hit is a different beast than getting kicked with a karate kick. A chambered kick that's for points is massively different than me trying to break your leg off. However, when they make it through that transition, that experience of knowing how to throw and do some cool stuff can be used very appropriately. Right? Like I think doesn't Dustin Poirier have a Taekwondo background?
I think, yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and he's crisp. That boy is crisp. Stephen Thompson's another karate guy who has made the transition well. Lyoto Machida.
Yeah.
But for all of those guys made that transition, we probably have 1,000 more that didn't.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm I'm not the guy to talk about both one Stephen Thompson and Tyron Woodley. I was there UFC 209, thanks to Albert
Okay.
Morales. Right. I watch a lot of wrestling. My dad was a musician, been to a lot of concerts and everything. I've never heard a chorus of boos louder, and I might have contributed than at the T-Mobile Arena that night for UFC 209. Like this shit with like the Jake Paul or Logan Paul or whatever. I was calling for fucking the Woodley's retirement, and I'm not taking away all the shit that he was able to do. Former Strikeforce champion, former UFC champion, like one of the all-time greats. I think it should be, but I think he kind of took some luster off of that, right? Like taking,
I unfortunately agree with you. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree with you.
yeah, and it's funny because like at the time he was on top, he was goading Dana White into fights, right?
Yeah,
Like literally public fights, right? Like in front of
he
the
was trying to
fucking
make his
press.
money. Yeah, he was trying to make his money.
Yeah, yeah, and but then having fucking boring ass fights, like that's the thing. This is the entertainment business. It's the fight business, but it's the entertainment business. It's Jim Ross, the fucking Hall of Fame, pro wrestling announcer. He says it's butts in every 20 inches. 20 inches of seat, whether that's
Yeah.
in the fucking arena, whether that's launching at home, whether it's, gathering with friends and pitching in $5 and beer. Like it's, we can, like fucking wrestling. The International Olympic Committee is about to fucking, uh, you know, ixnay and 86 fucking wrestling. Wrestling as pancreation was literally the fucking genesis of the Olympics. So what the fuck are we doing?
Right, right.
And walk running does better numbers than wrestling. What what the like
Hey,
what the
hey,
fuck?
but are you talking it's doing better numbers than traditional wrestling?
Yes, because
Yeah,
it's not on the chopping block.
yeah.
Wrestling for sure.
I feel as I am closer to wrestling now, and we have quite a bit of wrestlers. I feel the problem with wrestling is it's choosing not to evolve. So they did a good job finally adding like a little like fun to like final acts and making the matchups. but it's still very, very old white run. And it still holds a lot of those political and religious ties, unfortunately.
100%.
Yeah, and it's not growing. And like I'm not confused why wrestling's doing poorly, because I think also what people forget too, man, like yes, I believe that as an Olympic athlete, that is pretty cool. However, I also want to remind you, you're an amateur. Like you are. You're an amateur. Like minus certain sports. As an Olympic athlete, that doesn't impress me that you were the best amateur. Like,
Yeah.
man, I'm really good at whatever amateur I want to pretend to be because it's amateur and who cares. When you get paid and you put food on the table for something, that to me is impressive. Can you get up and put food on the table because you are that good that you are worth being paid to be that good? That's what's up, man. I mean, I could watch competitive sewing if they were making enough money to put food on their table. That's pretty cool. You know, but if you're not getting paid for it, there's a reason you're not getting paid for it, and I don't have an interest in watching it.
Yeah. And there's some asterisks. You know, you when you were an amateur, you got paid. I know in a lot of circles, amateurs have taken the commissions have taken the role of like the NCAA or the International Olympic
Oh,
Committee, where they
yes.
don't fucking pay the fighters. Which again, like 10 years ago in the infancy, amateurs got paid. You could
Well, we
make a
got paid
fucking
on
living.
ticket sales. We got paid on ticket sales.
Oh yeah, yeah, no. But
Yeah.
even the sponsorship, like there are some commissions if they fucking see you on social media and you got a sponsor, you ain't fighting.
Oh, yeah, that's not cool, man. You gotta have something. Chris Webber, basketball scholarship, was talking about how he didn't have enough money to eat because they weren't allowed to work. So yeah, I do. There should be some kind of adjustment or regulation. It is weird to me. I understand the concept of not letting these college athletes get paid because you want them to focus on what they're there for. However, man, it's not fair to make people struggle just because they're good at something.
Yeah, I mean, but look how long it took the NCAA, and you know, it. I'll even fucking take it. I'll put a personal story, right? So I loved pro wrestling long before I loved MMA. I love them both to this day, right? And actually, it was Dan the Beast Severn walking onto WWF TV in the mid to late '90s that got me into MMA, right?
Okay.
So I remember, I think I stole a toy car from Costco.
Okay.
I didn't need to. I thought I was being the bad boy, right? All of the fucking chicks that I,
Yes.
liked, they left me for
Young
bad boys.
young men and our awesome decision makers.
Yes, yes, with hormones fucking raging, right? So I'm like, and none of the girls were there, right? I just wanted to have a full story. I stole a car from Costco, not a toy car, not a toy car. I stole a car, right? I stole a car from Costco. Well, I got caught. I was banned from that Costco for a year. And with that, not only a vicious beatdown by both my parents, but also, I was banned from watching wrestling. Now, my dad and my stepmom, they worked nights. They worked at
Okay.
in Hollywood as actually bathroom attendants. I'm proud of it.
Okay.
They made so much money doing it.
Work is work, man. And if you're working in a place that requires like people to tip you, you can make some very good money. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
typically if people are tipping you, they themselves have money.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's why if I go to a club with my wife or something or a restaurant and there's a bathroom attendant, I will not go to the fucking bathroom if I don't have any cash on me. Right? My dad was a street performer, a musician in San Francisco. My wife likes to sit and look and listen. I was like, "Do you have money to fucking pay for them?" No. Okay, you shouldn't be listening to him because you're fucking stealing him. You're stealing from them. Like, fuck, that's their art. They're doing this. This is why they pay their fucking bills. I've been there where, a bunch of fucking crowd of people, 40 to 100 deep would be there. And then when it would be time to fucking, sell some cassettes or fucking pass the hat around, everybody fucking Houdini'd, So like
Yeah. Yeah.
that shit hits hard. So going back to the pro wrestling thing, they banned me from it. They came home early one night because I guess it was slow. I was expecting them at 3 or 4 in the morning, right after the clubs let out and they fucking, packed up their shit. Well, they came home at 11 o'clock on a Saturday. And of all the things that a young Woods could be watching, especially with cable, unrestricted, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hormones raging. Of all the things that I could be watching, you know what I was watching, Stephen?
What?
Sumo.
Sumo wrestling?
Yes. Oh, no. So here's the thing. They walked in, right? And they were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm watching sumo." They're like, "Sumo what?" I wouldn't let them have it. I go into the origins of it. How samurais used to watch this shit. Like, I go fucking deep. And this is with that fucking, yes, I wouldn't let them have it. I wouldn't let them have it. Like that, I was like, and the concept, like we call it sumo wrestling here in the West because we're
Right.
not as cultured of Japanese culture because of World War II and what happened, right? Like that I fucking went hard in the paint, and they were like, "You son of a bitch."
Young men and our
So
stubbornness and fine
yeah,
decision making.
well, that's kind of like the NCAA and all of these things, right? Like the reason why people want to go there to a Harvard, a Yale, even the military, right? Because the military, they have the military bowl with the Navy, David Robinson, right, of the Spurs, a Hall of Famer. He was a Navy basketball player, right? So to say that you haven't made untold millions, if not billions, by selling their likeness in a video game form, in a jersey form, just the shirt of that school leads people to believe it's associated with whatever fucking player that is prominent that you're not paying.
Yeah.
And if you look at fucking Real Sports, right? They did a fucking expose on I think it was because the whole deal being a college athlete, right? You're a student athlete, right? So they give you a fucking, bachelor's at the very least if you fucking fulfill it, right? Well, the fact of the matter is that some tutors for these big name NBA, NFL, even NHL guys, right? WNBA girls, right? Couldn't even fucking spell their name on the
Oh,
contract. On the fucking contract. But they have
yeah.
a bachelor's
Right.
in communication or English studies,
I don't have a bachelor's.
psychology. Psychology and CTE is already in the throes,
Right.
but they have a bachelor's in psychology. Figure
Well,
that
man, money goes a long way, right? Entertainment. If you're putting people in those 20 inches you're talking about, right?
one.
You'll get what you need.
Yeah, yeah, it's a machine, but um, yeah, I like to rage against the machine, but even they were fucking charging $1,000 tickets before COVID, so for their reunion. So I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a
Yeah.
weird one. So, so Steve, I mean, obviously, you competed and
Yeah.
you won a title, right? Which
Yeah.
some people like Sakuraba, right? I looked on his Wikipedia page the other day. He never won a title in MMA. He's a Hall of Famer. He is currently All Japan Pro Wrestling, the counterpart of New Japan, with a 1B, 1A, 1B to the biggest pro wrestling promotion in Japan. And he
Right.
is a tag team champion at 53. Minoru Suzuki, again, has competed in pro wrestling for the last 15 years and arguably some of the biggest money of his career. Was able to repay the debts that he had with Pride, him and Funaki, right? Matt Riddle,
Yeah.
Shayna Baszler, Barnett has dabbled, right? Like sometimes there's more money in other things, right?
Yeah.
So I want to know as somebody who is a champion, I think you're still a champion, but I'm kind of a belt mark. I love good title belts, right? So where is your title belts?
Uh, so this is humorous actually. So when I was fighting, we had lost my belts. We didn't know where they were. I was supposed to bring them to this showing, and like I couldn't find them. And then I got a call from my kid's school, and I had like they wanted me to like bring the belts in and like do a show and tell for the school and like talk about how like you can improve stuff that I didn't even know to do. Right? They're just gonna put words in my mouth and tell a bunch of kids. Um, so we couldn't find them, and it took like 6 months, and we finally found. I had at the time I had two belts, and they were hidden like in this corner under this basket that sat there for 6 months. We had no idea. But now my title belts are hanging in the gym. Yeah, they're just hanging in the gym. They're all of our belts are marked. Like we have the belts up there that get donated from the students, but I put their name on them,
Yeah,
just so we know who did what. And um, yeah, I don't know. My belts, I made sure that I won enough so that each kid could have one. And that was it. I don't know. It's not. Yeah, my wife and I are kind of minimalist, so like we don't have pictures, we don't have family heirlooms, we don't keep those things in our house. Like that's not important to us. It's just not who we are. We fight and we are competitive, and that is that. My wife and I will fight to get to the fridge just for the sake of competition. Like, we live in a competitive household.
yeah.
um, and like
I
on our gym page, our dogs are fighting all the time. It's just we like competition, we like fighting.
Yeah, I feel like know you guys enough at this point to know that's absolutely true. Like that is how you guys are fucking intense, man. I mean, amazing people, but intense as fuck. Like, I remember Kat telling me about the story. Talk about like unathletic and shit like that. About your guys' 14-year-olds ran
Yep.
for track and shit like that.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
12. Yeah, she's.
Oh, 12. Yeah, yeah. I'm not good with numbers. I can't count worth of shit, man. I miss that day on
Yeah.
Sesame Street.
No, she's
Fucking
good. She's running. She had her first meet on Monday, and she hadn't trained very little, right? And then I had kind of gotten on her. I had to talk with her. I was a little pissed off and shit. And because here's what happened. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I got the track, like the meet sheet, right? Well, these track meets are like an hour and 15 minutes for me to drive. And I was like, Olive, I'm telling you right now, I'm not driving that far to watch you lose. Like, that's not what I'm doing. Like, that's not the business I'm in, right? Like, you want to get good at something, then be good at it, and I'll come see you. But I'm not a cool enough dad to go watch what you're bad at. That's stupid. I'm not going to support you doing shitty at things. Like, that's silly, right? Like, by choice, right? It's different if you're trying and you have a shitty outcome. But the thing about trying, my friend, is trying leads to positive results. People forget that. That's the thing about trying. So if you are trying, you will end up winning. That's a fact. Okay. If you are truly trying, you will win. So my daughter decided that now she is going to try. So on Monday, she had her first track meet. She did actually okay, but it was just on pure like athleticism and like really working towards something. But we'll see, man. She said she's going to run and get on it, and she wants to place. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. My younger one's a little more. She's got like my stubborn like I'm stubborn, so I'm going to do it attitude, which is great when you're young. However, as an adult, what Cat has is better, like the resiliency and deciding, okay, I'm maturely going to make this decision and do it instead of ignorantly and angry. That was my thing. I would just dedicate myself to it because I was ignorant and angry. She'll dedicate herself to it because she thought it out and it's the right thing to do. Us men and our great decision making.
You guys sound like my wife and I. Like really, and I'm the you. I'm fucking stubborn as hell. Like
Yeah, man.
like I got my COVID test Tuesday. I got the results No, Wednesday. I got the result yesterday that I was negative. This silly motherfucker was going to
Okay.
do two wrestling events, pro wrestling events, last night and tonight, then fly to New Orleans to go see Eric Clapton and fly back.
Okay. All right.
Because I'm a fucking nut.
Eric Clapton. So.
Yeah, I was like $40. First off, I didn't even know he was on tour, and I was like, the last time he played LA, it wasn't good. He had to fucking cancel the concert because he couldn't even fucking pick up his guitar because his something in his hand all fucked up and whatever. And that was like
Okay.
3 years, yeah, 3 years ago. We just, fucking lost Charlie Watts. Phil Collins can't pick up a fucking drumstick. That's why he's got his kid. And I was like, this might be the fucking last time. Holy
Yeah.
shit. And I was gonna fucking drop the fucking plane ticket. Like, so theoretically, the fucking pro wrestling event starts 8 o'clock p.m., right? Pacific Standard Time tonight, right? It'll probably end around midnight, 1 o'clock. Then jump on a plane at 7 a.m. to hit New Orleans at like noon, fart around New Orleans till the show at 7 o'clock. I have a hookup at Marriott that I would stay for the night and then fly my ass back. I was gonna do that after 2 weeks of almost dying. Like,
hey man, I had a fight that I had surgery, and within 12 hours, I was traveling out to the fight. It is what it is. Hey man, I gotta cut this short though. We have to be across the street for weigh-ins, and I just found out my fighter's still a pound fat, so I gotta go work this out.
So where can people find you in all of the cool shit you do on the interwebs?
I don't do a lot of cool shit. However, check out Daddy Coach. It's actually just a lot of funny stuff that happens with our fighters at the gym. It's retarded, right? Just things I catch them doing is absolutely ridiculous. And then obviously at the gym at DCO in May, I am typically on the mat. I only teach a couple classes a week, but I do quite a bit of personals, with our professionals. So I am there often, fucking around. We'll talk to you later, brother. I appreciate you.
No worries. And again, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
What was that?
You're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Hell yes. So be like Steve, be like me, subscribe to the podcast. And if you don't believe us, hey, Zeta Zang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zang. Make sure you subscribe to According to Woods YouTube.